Well, good morning. Thank you very much for joining me on this video. I want to talk to you this morning about right of first refusal. Most of the topics that I cover are things that have come up in the office recently, and in fact this one came up twice in the last week or so. The first one was interesting. There were two side-by-side semis, and each owner had given a right of first refusal to the other neighbor. What was going on here was, everybody understands that if you own one semi, it's nice to own the other side rather than one across the street. And so each of them said, you know, it'd be really nice to buy the other side. And neither one was planning on selling, but they said if it ever comes up, I want to have the opportunity to do. So it was set up so that if it came up with either one, the other person was notified. The other situation that came up was there were two partners that owned a building. And the one wanted to buy the other out and wanted to be able to establish what was a fair market price. So he wanted to right of first refusal and then throw it on the market and look at offers and decide whether he wanted to match it or not. You see that a lot when in marriage breakups, a husband and wife, and maybe one party wants to buy the other out, but they don't want to just go by an appraisal, so they want to throw it on the market and see what comes up, and then they have the option of either matching that offer and proceeding with the purchase or walking away from it. Of course, we don't like that as realtors, but we have to face it as a reality. It's called a right of first refusal. And I want you to understand that a right of first refusal is different than an option to purchase. An option to purchase has a fixed purchase price. An option to purchase has a fixed closing date. And a good example of that might be, let's say somebody's starting up a business, going into a commercial building, leasing it, and spending a lot of money. Maybe he's opening a restaurant, spending a lot of money on furniture and equipment and leasehold improvements and so on, and doesn't know whether the operations are going to be viable or not, and has used up all his proceeds setting the business up. But he wants ideally to own the business, and it would make a lot of sense. He's got a lot of money invested. So he puts a option to purchase, and maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years, and with the option to purchase, he puts a deposit. And let's say it's for a year, and it says at the end of 11 months or 11 and a half months, whenever it's going to be tripped, you either commit to buying the property and you provide a further deposit and then you move ahead with the closing, or you release the other party, lose that first deposit, and the option to purchase is done away. That's not the same with a right of first refusal. A right of first refusal has no fixed price. We don't know what the price is going to be. It also has no fixed closing date. It's open-ended and can happen anytime. What you have here with a right of first refusal is you have the opportunity, if the owner of the building ever decides to sell, he may put it on the market, or maybe somebody knocks on his door and says, I'd like to buy the property. Before he goes ahead and commits firmly to the other party, he can enter into an agreement of purchase and sale, but it has to be conditional, and then he has to go back to the person who holds that right of first refusal and give him the opportunity to substantially match the offer he is willing to accept. Now that means that he's got to see the offer, and I know RICO says it's private, you can't. This trumps RICO. It's a provision of the relationship on the property, and you can block out the name of the purchaser if you like, but the person holding the right of first refusal has a right to see that offer and know what's happening, and then he has to either substantially match that offer or walk away. Now, the owner of the property has to notify the person holding the right of first refusal and give him a certain amount of preset time to consider it. I saw one the other day that was 15 days. I think that's too long personally. It really makes it awkward on the person who's bringing in the backup offer, if you like, but it can be whatever you want. You notify the party that's holding the right of first refusal, and they decide whether they're going to buy it or whether they're going to back out. Now, there's one other side thing I think you need to know, and that's if he decides to back out and that kills the right of first refusal, and now the seller can go ahead and sell to this other party, if moving forward they substantially change the terms of the agreement. Maybe there's a problem with financing, and the seller agrees to hold a mortgage for 2 years interest-free. Or maybe there's a problem with the building inspection and the seller agrees to reduce the price by $50,000. Either of those things, anything that substantially changes the offer opens that right of first refusal up again. You've got to go back to the person and see if they now want to step in with the new terms of the offer, and the person has the right to match it or walk away. One further thing, and I think this is important, there's no legal requirement that the right of first refusal is registered on title, but it's a good idea. You won't get it, for example, in spouses, and they're really testing the market to see what they're going to pay. But I was buying a property one time, went in conditional, got my financing in order, made a commitment to the bank, removed the conditions, moved forward to closing. A few days before closing, my lawyer contacted me and said, Wayne, I just discovered there's a right of first refusal on this property. I went to the seller and told him about that, and the seller said, I forgot all about that. He contacted the person who had the right of first refusal, and he decided to go ahead and buy it. It was fortunate for me that the mortgage company released me because I couldn't use the funds, I couldn't close the transaction. But it's important, if it's not registered on title, I would have gone ahead and bought the property, known nothing about it, and then when the person who had the right of first refusal discovered that the property was actually sold, he'd be mad, but it was too late. So really, to enforce it, to put teeth in it, it should be registered on title, and it certainly can be. I hope that makes sense. Difference between a right of first refusal and an option to purchase. You're going to run across it from time to time. You may even elect to use it or counsel your buyers or sellers to use it at some point in time. And I hope this is helpful. Thank you very much for joining me on this video. I look forward to talking to you again next week.